So the first turning of wheel of Dharma is the main core and main official teaching of Buddha. Even among the three turning of wheel of Dharma, the first wheel of Dharma was the most official one. So there are, like if somebody asks or questions about the authenticity, then the first turning wheel of Dharma was the most the official and the most creditable one. So Four Noble Truths is what he taught in the first wheel of Dharma. So Four Noble Truths is supposed to be the answer which all the spiritual practitioners were searching before Buddha but were unable to find. Even the five partners, he practiced asceticism with for 6 years. So like just earlier than getting enlightened, they got separated. They got separated because Our Lady brought food to offer to Buddha, and he ate the food. And the other five partners were like disappointed with Buddha. So you have ruined your practice, because they had their own concept, their philosophy of getting liberation. So they left him and they went to the current Varanasi part. Varanasi is quite far from the boat there. So they left away because he ate food. But why he ate food was also like he had already approached the middle way, figuring out himself, and which is like, to mention in short, like not going into extreme. So torturing yourself with hunger and difficulties is also a kind of extremism according to Buddha's approach. So after leaving that extremism, he finally was successful in getting enlightened in a very short period of practice. So after leaving the asceticism, it didn't take him too long to get enlightened. So he was supposed to have found the truth. So the truth, after again him meeting those five partners, he first shared with them at Sarnath, Varanasi. And when he shared the Four Noble Truths, so most people were convinced. Those partners were convinced, and then the village, the town were convinced. The whole India was convinced. The whole Asia was convinced. We can say almost. But there are like very few incidents which were kind of clashing with Buddha and not getting convinced with him. He had his own what we call nephew or cousin brother who was always jealous of him. So there are a few people who were not convinced or who were not intuitive with Buddha. So that is the solution he found it for, like is the biggest thing which is for a whole humankind to found liberation. So going to the Four Noble Truths shortly is Four Noble Truths are the truth of suffering. You can see in the placards. So first one is the suffering, and the second one is the cause of suffering. Third one is end of suffering. Fourth one is the path we can say. So the teaching he brought after getting enlightened was in a very scientific approach, because the whole foundation for his teaching was the theory of cause and effect. So these Four Noble Truths is also aligned as the cause. The previous one is the cause and the latter one is the solution or the effect, we can say. So first one is the suffering. The life or the samsara, the world. So everything being a conditioned phenomena. So everything is suffering. So when he said everything is suffering, so we have to try to understand properly. Some people also get wrong ideas, and especially in Western world, many people have like, we have to always be positive. Why suffering? There are such kind of concepts also, but it's a problem. So like whether you are a doctor, if you are a doctor, you have to find the problem. So if you don't find the problem, then you cannot heal or get cured from what problem you have. So also if you are trying to have surgery or operation, you get informed, pre-informed mostly. So we have to know our problems. So when Buddha is saying he's suffering, then we have to understand. So he is pointing to us the problem we have. So he also categorized those suffering into 3 kinds of suffering. So the first one, it might not be mentioned here. So suffering of suffering, maybe if you want you can get note yourself. Suffering of suffering is the number 1. And suffering of suffering is the normal suffering we understand. The suffering of heat, suffering of cold, suffering of getting hurt and wounded, and suffering of like physically having back problems, leg problems, neck problems, all of those. And getting into fire and having all of those problems. So those all are the sufferings of suffering. So you know that you are suffering. You also exclaim, oh, I am suffering. So those are the sufferings of sufferings. And then the suffering of change, so is the serious and the more deeper suffering, we can say, suffering of change. So if we try to understand, if we try to think, so all the sufferings, the deeper sufferings we are suffering is mostly brought by the change. So normally the birth, illness, the aging and the death, they are also a change. So we don't like change. We want stability, we want constant of everything. You don't want your glasses to be broken, you don't like that, you don't want your bags to torn out. So we don't want change. You don't want it's more scars and wrinkles in your face. So we try to have stability with ourselves and all the stuffs we have. So when there is these changes, then we suffer deeply. And okay, also I forgot to mention the general suffering, which I usually mention, is also it can be compared to or categorized into the suffering of change, is what in this interdependent and conditioned world, mostly what happens is what we don't want. If you try to think, considering your own life, your own personal life, is what we want is mostly we don't get it. It only gets far. There is also one concept in Tibetan Buddhism, chasing the rainbow. So it becomes like chasing a rainbow. So what you want is always, the more you try to get it, it gets more far. It gets far more far. And another thing is, what you don't want is always comes with you. You don't want the wrong companions, they always come to you. You want your good friends, they get far. You get latest gadgets, they get like lost or damaged. So whatever you don't want, you kind of supposed to get it, and what you want gets like far from you. So there's also kind of a mechanism of this world, the samsara, as we say. So there was also, we can categorize for now into the suffering of change. And the main suffering of change, we can consider the birth. So we also have to consider the birth to be the problem. It's the process or the start of the process. So some people say birth is auspicious, birth is the most wonderful thing, but if we think with this another perspective, then birth is also the starting of the problem. So when we're talking about the liberation and nirvana, it's also about getting rid of all those problems along with the birth. So when we say you get enlightened, you achieve nirvana, that means you got rid of the birth also. So that's why the Siddhartha Gautama Buddha finally he took birth and he died for last time 2600 years ago. So and the final one, the third one, I was talking about the three categories of suffering, and the third one is the what we call all pervasive suffering. So suffering is pervaded with us. We have this mechanism, the body itself is the main mechanism of the suffering. So all the problems all the sufferings we can consider is mostly related with this body. And also because we consider itself with our and I and me. So that's why this body is supposed to suffer. Also, if we try to understand the theory of karma in Buddhism, so we had our past actions. It might be from the previous life, or it might be in this life, but the previous period, where we had our actions, and those actions brought the reactions, even in the science book. Like every actions have equal reaction, so it's kind of same. So this body is also a reaction of our previous actions. So if this is a reaction, that means it has to suffer. So we already are vegan, so now we can understand when I talk about non-vegan might not be able to understand the law of karma, the law of cause and effect. So you had gave trouble to someone. That means you also have to get the same troubles. So that's why this body is. Like some people have gastritis problems, some people have ulcer problems. There are thousands of illness, you already know. So why are there so many illnesses? And more illnesses being found by the new scientists and doctors. So we have another new set of bunch of illnesses. That means like we do things differently. The wrong actions, the right actions also, we have the instinct to do it differently. So we create different kind of karma. And again, like we have different kind of illnesses, we have different kind of problems. Also like we see lots of people nowadays, some people, like some babies getting born with like 2 or 3 heads, having 4 legs. So different kind of like beings we can see. So we can relate. It might be there's some kind of karma which brought them to their current condition. And also one of the saying, the quote of Buddha is, if you want to look at your previous life, look at your body. So the body is the result of your previous life. So if you want to look into your previous life, look at your body. If you want to look into your future life, look at your mind. So the state of your mind currently. So it is supposed to create different actions. So if your mind is positive, if your mind is peaceful, then the future life will probably be a very optimistic one. So coming to the main topic, so suffering of all pervasive suffering. So we have these different organs, skin, the blood circulatory system, the bone system, and then the neurological system, we can say, so which troubles us in a different manner, different ways. So that's why it's all pervasive suffering. So till this body is with us, we are supposed to suffer. And then the second one is the solution to that problem. So it's a cause of suffering. Okay? It's not a solution. I beg my pardon. It's the cause of the problem. So we just finding that you are getting fever, you are getting very weak, that much is not enough, like it itself is not a problem. It's what is the complaint we go with when we go to the doctor. But the doctor and the diagnosis system finds the problem. And this is the diagnosis of that problem. So cause of suffering is, in general terms, the desire and the craving. So our craving and our desire brings the problem is what Buddha found. So the previously I mentioned about I and my, me, my relating with this body. So we crave with this I, we crave with this me and my also. And all of those cravings are mostly associated with I, me and my. So if you are not associating with I, me and my, then even the suffering is not a problem for you. You embrace the suffering. You embrace the suffering, you welcome the suffering. So that's why the craving, desire, when in the previously also I mentioned, when the things you want always get far because of that craving, and when it gets far, you get more suffering. If you easily achieve it, then there might be not much problem. But the things you are wanting, things you are chasing, is like always making you very anxious and very frustrating, irritated, not getting it, not being able to achieve it. So the cause of the suffering is the desire and the wanting. So if you are supposed to practice the Buddha's teaching, then we have to understand. Many Buddhists currently also don't understand. Like they think they are practicing, but they are again craving and desiring. So craving and wanting is what we are supposed to get rid of, to get free from the problems. So we can enjoy it. Like some people say, the monks shouldn't do this, monks shouldn't do that. We have our own discipline system, we have our own list of discipline system. But also, due to all the knowledge of the Buddhist philosophy, you can see most of the Buddhist monks are, we can see happy because they enjoy they enjoy the good food. Your non-vegan eat the non-vegan good food, they enjoy it at least. We can think in that way. And the music, the movies, the games, sports. So we enjoy it. When you have the opportunity, you have your current moment, you can enjoy everything if your discipline allows it. Or like you have your own list of I should do and not do. So if your should do and should not do list allows you, you can enjoy everything. So I myself also enjoy almost everything besides what I consider my shouldn't do. So, but problem is like once you experience something, your mind kind of says, once more, I want it again. So that's the problem, because you want it again. So you can just enjoy whatever comes in front of you. Then there is like no problem in your life, in general concept, and in the ultimately you get rid or freedom from the whole of suffering, the cause of suffering itself. So Buddhism is also the practice of mind. So that's why in Tibetan language, Buddhism is not said Buddhism. In Nepal it says Buddhist. That means Buddhist is Buddhist. In English also Buddhist. But in Tibetan the name for the Buddhism is inner practice. So it's all the practice of inside your mind. So you turn your mind into a very positive and very stable one. So when your mind is completely stable, we can see all the reality, number one, and the problems do not trouble us. The problems are around us, but we are not troubled by them. So cause of suffering, I guess I'm getting longer, so I think I should try to get a little bit faster, or I mean in a shorter. So the third one, so let's not go too much into, we can have the question answer session for a while, and then I'll give my card also. You can like personally ask me if you want to know more about. So end of suffering is, here it is written, Nirodha is the end of suffering, is the solution. So the solution, end of suffering, I already mentioned Nirvana, the freedom. So when we talk about Nirvana, we have to understand the state of Buddhahood, enlightenment. It's not some ordinary just getting free from this normal suffering, being able to enjoy the life. It's a glimpse of Nirvana. It's a glimpse of Nirvana. Like when we are through the years of practice of meditation and so on, when we are able